Shayura is a character you'll only really hear about in the lore, but has a truly fascinating story. A rogue guardian who hunts down others who turn away from the light. During trials matches with their fire team, she would repeatedly beat a guardian to death thinking it was Hive. Then she would try and destroy stasis users around the time of Beyond Light. Although she was captured and turned in by her own fire team, she would escape multiple times, and her story continues in today's video. Shayura is a female warlock who's had some struggles over the years. Her tale first begins back in the Red War. Shayura, like most guardians, was traumatized during this event when their light was lost. At the time of this Cabal invasion, Shayura, Aisha, and Reed 7 were hunting mysterious creatures in the tunnels of Old Chicago when the Traveler was caged. This began her trauma. In the Pyrrhic Ascent armor, we can see the next chapter in the story. Back in Season of the Arrivals, when the pyramids were showing up for the first time, many of our planets and bodies would get engulfed by the darkness: Mercury, Mars, Io, and Titan. Now, not only did we lose connection and communications to those planets, we also lost some of our leaders: Brother Vance, Asher Mir, and on Titan, Commander Sloan. Shayura felt some stress and loss when it came to that last one in Commander Sloan. She looked up to her a lot and thought they could save her, but her fire team thought otherwise. In the hood, Shayura says, "We shouldn't just leave her behind," Shayura says into the void with a tightness in her throat. "Not our call, Shay. Agree or disagree, we're a united front." Aisha, her teammate, replies from across the curvature of Mercury's atmosphere. "Then act like it," Shayura fires back, snapping her jaw shut as soon as the shout escapes her lips. She brings her hands up to her mouth, regretting her tone but not retracting it. "It's Sloane's choice." Aisha's voice sounds smooth in contrast. "You know how she is. If she's declining evac, there's no force in the system that'll uproot her. Stay, go, it's her choice." So the fireteam members throughout the rest of that card had some conflict. Shayura wanted to extract Sloane. She thought they could save her, but the others agreed that they should leave, and it was Sloane's choice to stay behind in the first place. Later on in a trials match, because of her memories of Titan and Sloane, she had a flashback. During the match, as they were combating the other Guardian team, she thought one of the other Guardians was a Hive Knight and repeatedly beat their face in, almost taking them out for good. After this moment, Shayura would hunt Guardians who decided to get rid of their light and turn away from the Traveler. In future trials matches, when stasis became available to the Guardians, she tried to end a Guardian for good in a match who used stasis, but Aisha stopped her in a fierce battle and argument. Here, the two would then turn Shayura into the Vanguard. In Season of the Splicer, Shayura escaped and would continue her rampage, killing many Guardians and allies like the House of Light. Not too long after, in Witch Queen though, things would take another twist. Shayura came into contact with a Lucent Hive, who she had dispatched as usual. But when a ghost would pop up after this one's death, she was puzzled. At the moment of squish, Shayura would question all she believed. She hunted those who turned away from the light, who worshipped the darkness like the Hive did, but now they're using the light. At this point, she would turn herself back over to the Vanguard, where a close watch was kept as she would sit there depressed about these events and also missing her family of a fire team. This brings us to Season of the Haunted, where in the new Trials armor, the Atavistic Idol set, we see a continuation of the haunting nightmares. Her jump ship was full of dead ghosts. Some of them were just pieces. We haven't determined how many dead yet. Vanguard Security Report. Earth, Last City, Detention Facility. The Warlock Shayura kneels on a pillow, eyes closed and head bowed, hands folded in her lap. The soundscape of city noise, punctuated by the melody of birds and the whistling wind, surrounds her, but there is no grass beneath her pillow, only cold concrete. 4 holographic screens encircle Shayura, providing a semi-realistic depiction of the gardens at the center of the Last City, a place of calm serenity situated in the shadow of the Traveler. "I exalt our forebearers," Shayura says softly. I exalt my fireteam. I exalt my truth. I exalt my heart. I exalt humanity's capacity for love. This above all else I hold true. The words feel like thick syrup in her mouth. Guilt makes it taste bitter. Her jaw trembles and throat tightens, her mouth too dry to swallow. I exalt our forebears. Her voice wavers just a little. I exalt my fireteam. Her jaw trembles. I exalt my truth. She can feel the warmth of tears on her cheeks. I exalt my heart. Her voice cracks. I exalt human. She breaks. Recitations turn into sobs, and Shayura slides from the pillow to the floor. Her shoulders heave, and she pulls her knees to her chest, crying against her legs. Dead guardians stare with hollow eye sockets when she closes her eyes. They beg for their lives. She trains a gun on them and exalts her truth. So in that card, Shayura is in this facility and she is haunted by her past, all these guardians that she's killed. In the next card, Shayura's fireteam members, Reed 7 and Aisha, are hunting nightmares or creatures of the moon. They want to help Shayura, but they must continue their battles. We believe she's also responsible for the dead guardian and Elixni we found on Venus. We haven't identified which dead ghost belonged to the guardian. Vanguard Security Report. Moon, Ocean of Storms, Anchor of Light. The Vanguard won't hold a military tribunal in the middle of a war. Reed 7 is a voice of reason. He stands in the doorway of a derelict moon base, fusion rifle held in a relaxed grip. The still smoldering bodies of Hive Thrall are scattered around the room. That's not comforting, the woman at Reed's back says. Aisha shoulders past him, leading with the barrel of her scout rifle, sweeping the area for any remaining targets. The last thing I want is Shay languishing in some kind of Vanguard prison cell for however long this goes on for, or until we're all dead, Reed 7 finishes. Aisha says nothing. This isn't the end of the world, Aisha, but we have to reach the bottom before we can climb to the top again. This isn't the bottom? Aisha asks, tilting her head to the side mockingly. She steps over to one of the blown-out windows and gestures to the massive silhouette of the Leviathan hanging over the moon, a crimson stream of nightmares spiraling up into its open maw. Because it sure as hell looks like it is. And what? The Vanguard has us out here doing new light patrols? They can't afford to give us leave, no matter how much we need it, Reed pleads. We have to stay active, contribute. We lost too many new guardians already with the Lucent Hive assault on the Cosmodrome. We can't... He sighs. We can't afford to lose anyone else. We have to do everything we can. Aisha leans one arm against the broken window frame, head hung low. Yeah, she whispers. Yeah. In the chess piece, the two members of the fire team fight some fallen who probably didn't need to be fought and then get into an argument. Jumpship logs indicate she visited Venus, the moon, the reef, and several locations on Earth. Her last position before surrendering herself was Mars. Vanguard Security Report. Moon, Ocean of Storms, K1 Communion. A fallen vandal collapses to the ground, ether vapor rising from a glowing hole where its face once was. Dark blue blood sizzles around the wound. Clear, Reed 7 calls out from the top of a flight of metal stairs, the barrel of his fusion rifle still crackling with energy from the last bolt it fired. As he descends, Aisha follows and shoulders her scout rifle. Looks like they were pulling the wiring out of the walls, she observes, lifting up her hand and aligning her ghost Dunya into the air. Check the systems here, make sure they weren't doing anything else. Affirmative, Dunya chirps, zipping off through the air toward a computer terminal. Aisha notices that Reed's glowing eyes are fixed on the ether wafting from the vandal's body. She spares a glance at Dunya before crossing the floor to Reed's side. Hey, she says with a hand on his arm, jostling him from his thoughts. I'm good. He lies, gingerly pulling away. Just thinking. Aisha looks down at the corpse, then back up to Reed. This isn't like what Shay did on Venus. She tries to be reassuring, but it comes off as dismissive. How's it any different? he asked with a dagger's sharpness in his voice. They were stripping wires from the walls, Aisha. They weren't trying to hurt anyone. They opened fire on us first. We didn't even try to talk to them, Reed yells. Aisha, Dunya chirps from across the room. Neither guardian hears the ghost. I'm sorry, Aisha says as she throws her arms up. Was I supposed to do that before or after they threw the grenade at me? Aisha, Dunya says again, more alarm in his voice. We could have tried something. Anything, Reed screams, getting in Aisha's face. We could have… Aisha! We're notifying fireteam members and life partners as we identify the ghost's remains. It's going to take a while. Vanguard security report. Red light floods over Dunya's black and gold shell. The tiny ghost's monocular blue eye bobs up and down as he tracks backwards through the air, taking in the presence of an ethereal figure hovering above. Aisha and Reed turn at Dunya's chirp of alarm, guns drawn, but as they train their sights in the robed nightmares shimmering in front of them, neither one can fully commit their aim. Aisha is the first to whisper an expletive in shock at the sight. Arguing about which of you is as terrible as I am? The nightmare of Shayura asks, turning her crimson stare away from Dunya's retreating form. Heaven forbid you to be as awful as your murderous friend. Aisha is frozen in confusion, hands trembling on the grip of her scout rifle. Shay? The word comes out of her mouth as little more than a hoarse whisper. The nightmare of Shayura floats slowly through the air toward Aisha and Reed, smiling when Dunya hides behind his guardian and transmats away. First comes the guilt, the nightmare croons. Then the shame, then the denial. I know the patterns well. She wags a finger back and forth chidingly. How soon before you forget me? Find a new warlock to bask in their well. Pretend that I never existed. Shay, what? Aisha can't even string her words together. Not until she feels Reed's metal hand clamp down on her shoulder. When she looks at him, his expression is one of resolve, not fear. It's then that she remembers the instructions Eris had given about how to survive on the moon if ever the nightmares came for them with familiar faces, familiar voices. Aisha looks back at the nightmare of Shayura and whispers, I'm sorry. And in the last card for the class item, Shayura meets with a doctor to discuss the Traveler, and her fireteam arrive. With the consensus disbanded, there's no telling how long this could take to go to trial. Given the current situation, we might all be dead before that happens. Vanguard security report. The first steps to healing are learning to forgive yourself. That's a hard one, I know. Dr. Saida Uzair sets her datapad aside, then sits forward in her chair. She folds her hands in front of herself. A tiny beaded chain is wrapped around one hand, and a small bone charm of the Traveler is pressed into her right palm. Shayura, whether or not a court of law finds you guilty of your actions in any measure, you are still held accountable to the court of your own conscience. Across from Dr. Uzair, Shayura is slouched in her chair. She stares past her doctor, out the narrow windows, and looks to the looming figure of the Traveler hanging in the sky. It seems so much bigger compared to the projection she chooses to display in her cell. Who judges them? Shayura asks, motioning to the window with her chin. To the Traveler. Dr. Uzair turns, glancing over her shoulder at the Traveler. Her grip on the charm tightens. I don't know, is her immediate answer, but the question will burrow its way through her mind, surfacing again when she lies down in bed tonight. I understand the human condition far better than a god's. Maybe the Traveler abandoned us because it's ashamed of us, of what we've done in its name. Shayura's voice is small, weary. An alert flickers on Dr. Uzair's datapad, momentarily drawing her attention away. Shayura fills the silence with a sigh. Maybe, Dr. Uzair says, though she doesn't believe it. But maybe we're all just short on hope these days. I'd like to extend our session a little longer, if you're willing. Would you mind if we did so with some guests? Concern flashes across Shayura's face, defensiveness, shame. She sits up slightly in her seat. Dr. Uzair can see the tension. When we speak of forgiveness, sometimes it helps to first be forgiven. Dr. Uzair says with a tempered smile. Shayura glances to the datapad, then back to the doctor. Reed 7 and Aisha would like to see you. Tears well in Shayura's eyes. Her voice of dissent evaporates. Shayura realizes there's still one thing she can still have faith in. Her family. So that is the current up-to-date lore with the Trials armor of what's going on with Shayura and her fire team. Reed 7 and Aisha encountered nightmares of Shayura on the moon, and now they're sort of coming back together to try and resolve this issue. This story is pretty great, and it's also really cool to see it extend, over seasons and over a couple of years and continue to go on rather than just concluding in one set of armor. I'm sure this isn't the end of this story, and we'll probably see more whenever we get the next Trials set. If you'd like to see some more Destiny lore and mysteries just like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Anyway, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you Guardians in the next one.